Hi everyone, today we're going to take a look at M.A.C's recent addition to their Pro Longwear line, the Pro Longwear Waterproof Nourishing Foundation. They claim that this is, as the name implies, waterproof, it resists oil, it resists humidity, and it builds up to a medium to full, natural looking satin matte coverage and finish. I would definitely say that that's accurate in a lot of ways, at least especially in terms of the coverage. This does certainly provide a medium to full coverage. It builds very well over areas where you want to add a bit more coverage to hide uneven skin tone and redness. But before we get too far into what this looks like and what it feels like, I think probably the best way to show you is to actually apply it, to actually show you what the product looks like and apply it here. So let's check it out. When you first see this, it actually has a bit of a thicker appearance to it, but it actually does feel quite light on skin. Now, you actually don't need much of this. As I mentioned already, a little of this goes a long way. It'll provide medium to buildable full coverage quite easily. You also want to make sure that you're using a tool that you're pretty familiar with, that you're comfortable with. With long-wearing foundations, especially ones that are very matte like this, they do tend to dry, fairly quickly. And once they do dry, they are set. And that is especially true here. Once this does dry, it's really not going to budge. However, it does take to blending very well. So whether you're using a foundation brush like this, I'm using the Wayne Goss number 13, Wayne Goss number 13, a beauty blender, for example, or your fingers, even fingers will actually work well with this, although I wouldn't really attempt that unless you're really skilled with using your hands, for your face, because if you don't get it blended all into those places that you want it to be blended into, it's not going to look, the most natural. You're going to see those lines of demarcation. Now that it's starting to dry, because I've been blabbering on, let me show you here. I'm actually not going to use a whole lot, but then you just kind of blend it on, and with a foundation like this that does have kind of that medium to full, coverage, I like to start in the middle of the face, just because that tends to be that area where, a lot of people have kind of the most amount of redness, especially around like the nose area, for example. And then if you have areas that you want to build up the coverage, you can just kind of, dab those on and stipple those on over those areas. As you can see, I'm really not using a whole lot here. Let's go ahead and get to the rest of the review, and we'll tackle some of those water-resistant claims too. So of course, you can finish that application up with a powder, for example, if you want. Technically though, it really doesn't need it. This actually holds up really well even if you have oily skin. I found this actually resisted shine throughout the day, and when I did blot, not a lot came off. In fact, really hardly anything came off on the blotting paper, for example, or tissue paper or paper towel. This is very transfer resistant. So if you find that you're really not liking foundations that can kind of come off, if you absolutely just rub it, for example, it just comes right off, especially if you have oily skin or if it's very humid out, or there's a lot of moisture, it's raining, that sort of thing. You will not find that to be true with this formula. This actually holds up very well. Now the color range. So the color range is very nice for M.A.C. It actually goes from NC/NW15 all the way up to NW or /NC 50. So there's a great range in there for most skin tones, and the shades are pretty true to the NC NW range. And a shade match is essential here. Because of the amount of coverage you get from this formula, if you're off in your shade range, it's going to be very apparent, especially if you apply even a little bit too much on a certain area of your face. So I would highly encourage you to get shade matched in store so you can test it out and see if this kind of formula is right for you. So as I mentioned, that 15 through 50 M.A.C range, what that means for those of us who are not familiar with the M.A.C shade range is that those who have a fair to light skin tone to deep skin tone will find most likely there is an option here for them. If you are super fair though, you won't find a shade here for you, unfortunately. NC 15 is about that kind of fair to light range. For example, Mercedes, also here, the lead beauty editor for Beautypedia, if you've seen her videos here, she's actually an NC 15. So that's kind of a good measurement for you. I'm an NC 30 as the shade I used here. So maybe some options there for most of us. Now, in terms of the water resistance claim, this is something that will hold up to a lot of moisture, but honestly, waterproof, I'm not really sure. If you're going to take a dip in the pool, for example, will this hold up? I don't know. I actually haven't tried that, but let's try it together. Let's find out together just how waterproof this is and how much transfer actually occurs when you get it wet. And I mean really wet. Okay. So, bowl of water. Okay, so it's definitely pretty wet now. Let me bring it in here a little bit closer for you. Zoom. And we can see what the finish of this actually is. So this held out pretty well. You know, it's not, it's definitely not running. You know, really, especially with it being just freshly applied, you're not really seeing anything running down my face, especially in terms of the color. But let's actually blot, and we'll see what it actually looks like. Okay, wow. So for being freshly applied, and especially since I kind of, you know, rubbed on it a little bit, not a lot came off. So as you can see, that's pretty impressive. If you get it really wet, you know, even if you, you know, when you rub it or blot it, number one, if you get it wet, it's not going to run. As you can see, it's going to stay pretty even. Actually, this is pretty impressive. So that's great news. If you're planning on taking a dip in the pool or getting a little wet, you know, whether you're at the beach, you can count on this, we know now, to hold up, you know, through that type of water exposure. So for all of those qualities that I've mentioned here and showed you, if you haven't guessed, this did earn a best rating, 4 stars, because it is not only an impressive formula for M.A.C, it comes in a great shade range, but it actually does make good on its claims of oil resistance, water resistance, yet this washes off really easily. I find actually with just my regular cleanser and, you know, if I want a washcloth, I actually use a Clairsonic, you know, in the evening, but it comes off, you know, really no hassle. So if you tried this and you loved it, if you hated it, whatever reason, any feedback that you have on this, if you're going to try it, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.